be selecting a developer by the end of this calendar year. In the second lane of our development work, we announced at the beginning of the engagement process at NYCHA and Holmes Towers. We've had over 18 individual meetings at these respective developments, one of them just Monday evening. More than 400 residents, elected officials, community partners, many of you have attended those. As you can imagine, it has been quite a dynamic process, and I think what everyone could agree on is that this is really a first for the authority in really starting with engagement first and being as transparent about the need and the need to change the status quo and really do something different in order to preserve the authority. So a lot more to come in this particular program. You'll hear more as we continue the engagement process in those respective communities, and we're doing that in partnership with a number of community groups and resident leaders, and with the expectation that in the first quarter of 2016 we'll be issuing request for proposals for the development in those two communities. In our ongoing effort to improve the delivery of housing and be a better landlord, the general manager will speak a little bit more about this in his report. This summer we launched our Fix It Forward initiative. We've started roof replacements with the mayor's first $100 million of his $300 million commitment. Work is underway at Queensbridge. Parkside will begin or already began in September, and there are a number of other developments slated to begin there. Tomorrow is the third anniversary of Hurricane Sandy, and again, there will be more information on this tomorrow, but a ton of work has happened led by our capital and Sandy rebuilding program to really ready ourselves to receive the more than $3 billion in federal emergency management dollars to actually begin that work. We actually have already begun construction in a number of places, and have are working closely with our colleagues to put in the necessary controls and compliance monitoring activities as that work gets underway. Another piece of work that has been ongoing is our work in the Ocean Bay community in the Rockaways, which is where we hope to demonstrate or actually utilize a federal housing program known as the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program that will allow us to invest significant resources in the repair and renovation of those more than 1,400 units of public housing, and so that work continues, as well as the engagement in that development. Another issue that has been certainly on the minds of all of us, especially today, as Officer Holder is laid to rest, the tragic and loss of life of a member of PSA 5 who lost his life on his doing what police officers do, keeping our community safe. And so there remains, the mayor's commitment remains to continue to double down on investing in those interventions, lights, cameras, our continued effort to bring down sidewalk shedding where possible, to support the continued downward trend in overall crime, and also working closely with our PD colleagues to address those developments where we're starting to see some spikes. Our role as landlord is, again, ensuring that the buildings are secure. We are, I'm also very excited to say we finally finalized and signed the memorandum of understanding with Manhattan DA Vance that will allow us to begin to draw down on the more than $80 million in lighting improvements, some of which have already begun at the Polo Grounds, and will continue throughout the portfolio. So a lot of work to continue to be done in this area, and more to report. I mentioned some of this around our effort to be a more modern landlord and housing provider, really stepping into the digital age. Our NYCHA app, I think these numbers are actually, there's even more. We've downloaded we've had even more than downloads. I think it's 9,000 downloads, Bob? 9,000 downloads of the app in the Android and iPhone platforms. We're actually seeing an interesting trend that, folks are doing this on the weekends when they have time, and we're starting to see work orders come in through that platform, as well as people obviously still using our customer contact center. But again, this is another way in which we can better serve our residents. A ton of work happening in our effort to improve and streamline our rent collection efforts. First phase really focused on making sure people know that there are multiple ways that they can actually pay rent. And we're also working to partner with some neighborhood organizations around connecting those NYCHA employees who are also residents who may need some additional and early intervention services around financial planning and rental payment. Something that I've talked a lot about is our recycling effort, not only as a commitment to clean, safe, and connected, but also as a way to ensure that we're keeping our employees safe by actually really distributing the huge number of the tonnage that people are moving in terms of trash. We know our staff spend a lot of time moving trash every day. So I'm pleased to say that we're on pace. We've installed more than 460 recycling bins in more than 34 developments throughout the portfolio, and we are on pace to ensure that all of our developments are fully operational by the end of 2016. Again, we're partnering here with Grow NYC and our resident engagement staff, who are doing a ton of work around working with residents and staff around general education and other workshop opportunities. So just a very high-level summary of some of the activities as it relates to Next Gen NYCHA. This again is just sort of a fraction of all of the work that staff are doing, but hopefully a update for all of you about our work together. So I'm happy to answer any questions from my fellow commissioners. If there are none.
You did mention the governor is supposed to be giving the $41 million for safety at 75 developments. Is he going to have strings attached to that money, as per usual?
So thank you for reminding us. In April, the governor announced that that the state was going to invest $100 million into the Housing Authority. We've really not had any more details about where that money is, the sort of how that money would be spent, until the unfortunate events of last week, where we learned in the news that the governor planned to allocate $41 million of that $100 million to safety and security efforts. I think it's important to note that those dollars will not come to the Housing Authority. They will actually go to the dormitory state of New York. They will do the work. They will procure the contractors. We have no sense of scope, scale, timing. We are eagerly awaiting more details. And as soon as we get them, we'll certainly report them.
Well, I didn't have any questions until that. So I want to make sure I understood that. He's got 41 million, but we're not in any way, shape, or form directing where those repairs will go.
No.
Do we know who is?
No.
Okay.
So there were a list of developments that were released as part of the press release. We, as I said, our staff, we look forward to getting the additional details about what the expectations will be for those developments. I can't speculate, but from what the press release said, they've tried to identify those developments where there are where NYPD statistics would support additional investment. But again, I think this is going to be a rather fluid process, and we obviously stand ready to be as supportive as we can to make sure that ultimately the dollars go to improvements that are going to have an impact on residents' daily quality of life.
I do recall us giving them a list as to what were the worst, shall we say, from lack of a better word, the worst developments, and that seems to have just, on the governor's part, seems to have just gone by the wayside.
So when the budget passed April 1st of this year, we submitted a plan to the HCR, Department of for Homes and Community Renewal, that was really focused on capital interventions, i.e. roofs, infrastructure, other things where we believe, based on our data, where you could have the most impact on driving down work orders. So we did provide a list of our worst developments per our physical needs assessments. But again, it seems as if the focus has now shifted to be more safety and security, which obviously is a major priority for us. And so we are, again, I think clearly supportive of the state supporting NYCHA in any form, and we will work with them to make sure that we can be as supportive as possible.
Thank you.
General Manager.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
This is the General Manager's October report to the board. I want to go over some key performance indicators and some operational challenges. A note when you look at key performance indicators, the agency actually has many key performance indicators in all of our programmatic areas. To the board this morning, I'd just like to focus on our operational key performance indicators under 4 major categories. The financial, specifically rent collection, work orders, that's emergencies, maintenance, and skilled trades, vacancies, apartment turnaround time and occupancy rate, and customer satisfaction, residents satisfied with all repairs. Again, this will be the key performance indicators of OpMom are now going to be within these. These are agency-wide. So this isn't just OpMom, this is agency-wide. So for rent collection, showing that rent collection metrics measures the percentage collected from the total rent billed and arrears. So this is all the funds that folks owe us compared to all the money that we've collected. There's many ways we can look at rent collection, but for the purposes of this presentation, it's all the monies that we collected compared to all the monies that were owed. And more specifically, looking at the rent collection rate from September 2014, from January 2014 through September 2014, compared to the same period of time, January 2015 through September 2015. And NYCHA collected $739,221,121 this year, compared to $694,741,429, which is an increase in total dollars of about $45 million. This represents about a 1.8 improvement in change from 2014 through 2015. Things that we're looking at, the chair mentioned in terms of the various activities we're looking to improve our collection efforts, include looking at using automated rent reminder calls, and to have these calls in both English and Spanish, to look at launching a very specific communications campaign where flyers would be posted, as well as putting notes in our journal about various ways that rent can be paid. Proposing new rent collection metrics and facilitating focus groups in November to staff to test and finalize these metrics. For example, looking at what our current property managers are collecting per month compared to what we're billing per month is a different way of looking at this and incentivizing our managers. Mandatory rent collection training sessions for our staff. Want to make sure that we are charging the right amount of money and making sure that people know the proper way of collections, and working on various pilots to test rent delinquencies and working with our other agency partners. On the work order overview, since January 2015, over 2,200,000 work orders have been created. Of these, 1,919,790 were closed. What closed means is about 70% of these were closed with the work actually done. 30% of these were verified and sequenced to other trades or closed due to no access, for example, tenants not home or refused service. And about 248,000 of these were canceled. And canceled, for the most part, are those work orders that were part of a larger systemic program, like boiler repairs, in which the work orders themselves were all part of a larger repair. So when that larger repair was done, these work orders would be canceled. In terms of overview, as of yesterday, there were 136,950 open work orders. This trend has been increasing over the last several months. One of the areas we're looking at to identify the increases, increased inspections, and specifically around our skilled trades. And we'll talk in a moment about how those jobs are identified. So one job, for example, could have several different kinds of work orders associated with it. But the trend is up, and we're already looking at ways in which we can move the trend back down. For emergency work orders, those are work orders that are high priority items such as heat, hot water, gas, elevator outages, etc. And NYCHA has a target of 24 hours to respond to these conditions. And to be clear, respond isn't necessarily fixing it, though we'd like to fix it within 24 hours. Sometimes respond means abating the dangerous situation with whatever the follow-up would be. From January 2015 to September 15, the average time to respond to these emergencies remained well under the target, from 17.8 hours in January to 11.3 hours last month. For maintenance work orders, the maintenance service levels measures the authority's performance in addressing simple repairs. We've set a target of 7 days. This is 7 days from the time that our residents would make a request of a simple item and our ability to respond to that simple item. Since January 2015, NYCHA has steadily shortened its service levels from 11.9 days to 8.3 days in September. This is driven by the OPMOM performance, as the chair noted earlier, which is about the 5.5, 5.7 days in response time. This slide really is, though it says maintenance work orders, is talking about some fix-it-forward initiatives, or specifically the real-time repair inspections. What we're finding about the real-time, though it's still in a pilot form, is that we're increasing resident satisfaction. So the resident will stay home once as opposed to multiple times. Again, this is the initiative in which we schedule the resident inspection, and we actually go in with the cart to do as much work as we possibly can. We found that their health and safety issues are being more proactively addressed during these visits, specifically smoke detectors and defective GFIC outlets, and that the inspection repair is happening at the same time. So this is actually a program, I think, that we are continuing to look to take to full scale. As was noted by the chair, it's over 61 developments currently, and since the time of its inception, over 11,000 repairs have been completed. On the skilled trade work orders, the skilled trade service levels measures the authority's performance in addressing more complex repairs such as carpentry, painting, and plastering. There is an upward trend from the 32 days in January to 46 days in September. Some of the things that's impacting this trend is identifying additional work and apartment inspections, as well as preparing for the HUD physical inspections and NYCHA developments. This is an area that is of great concern to myself, the team, and the chair. And we're looking at ways in which we can improve our skilled trade work orders. In many ways, it's about evaluating how we are doing our dispatching. We are exploring the use of handhelds. We're looking at our business process review to improve productivity, strategic planning, scheduling, and logistics, and working with our skilled trades and our planning units so that the work is more coordinated. And finally, and as importantly, looking at inventory management, making sure that we're actually having the materials that our trades need to get the work done, that they have the materials in hand at the time that they're scheduled to do the work. Important key performance indicator as a property manager is our occupancy. and our vacancy rates. We're looking at it. Since January 2015, NYCHA has consistently exceeded the HUD target of 97% for its occupancy rate. We've been tracking about 99.4, 99.5 since January. What this translates into is that over the 178,000 units that's in our inventory, about 1,000 are vacant right now, of which about 800 of those 1,000 are in some form of reoccupancy. So this is unheard of, frankly, in terms of property management. This is one of the things I think that NYCHA is very proud in terms of exceeding all public or private standards around property management. One of the things that, as a conjunction of this, is our turnaround time. So the apartment turnaround time measures the average days to reoccupy a NYCHA apartment after it's been vacated. We're looking at a 30-day target. This year has above the target. In September, it was, last year, it was about 52 days. Now we're tracking at about, last year we were tracking at 73 days on an average from the time that an apartment is vacated till the time it's re-upped. This year we're tracking at 52 days, still exceeding the target, but an improvement from a year ago. Things that impact that turnaround time are that we're now looking at leasing up units at our LLC 2 using some Section 8 funding, which is improving our lease ups. We're working with DHS to provide some resources to assist us in that. Things that's impacting sort of negatively is refusal rates. We're looking at this point almost 2, which is typical of how a vacant unit is shown at least twice. We're actually looking at business process reviews, a plan to review the lease-up process in 2016 to improve performance. For example, looking at the time that we contact our resident or client to see how long we give them to review and to see what does that make sense based on private sector modeling. And looking at the transfer process. Again, something we want to be sensitive to, but right now, the time we actually notify, we notify a resident by transfer, and giving them the opportunity to get it together to move impacts the vacancy time, because a vacant conceivably would be left open while they are getting it together to pack and actually move. An important area for our key performance indicators, and one that we are still frankly working on, is our customer satisfaction. So the customer satisfaction measures the percentage of residents satisfied with the overall experience of the repair. And this information is obtained from the results of monthly automated calling conducted by our customer contact center for closed work orders. This metric represents the percentage of residents who have given the rating of excellent, average, or fair in response to the following question: how would you rate your satisfaction with the overall service? In September 2015, a total of 2,099 calls were conducted. 1,933 residents responded to this question, and 1,500 were satisfied. It's also the 78% that say it was fair, average, or excellent also suggests that about 22% feel that there is not satisfaction. So this allows us a little benchmarking anyway. We now have an opportunity to look at, as we expand these customer service calls, to get to a larger number, we'll have a better ability to look at what represents a standard and to improve that standard based against it, including working with my NYCHA and other kinds of contact areas to have residents have an opportunity to let us know how they feel we're doing as a business. And finally, just some larger challenges that we're looking at. We're looking at refining our metrics related to rent collection work orders. The time repairs while we do a job. Obviously, clearly we have instances where we far exceed the amount of time that a client or a resident has asked for repair and our time to respond to it. And rent collection, again, looking at the ways we can simplify it. We're also, in terms of challenging, addressing the vendor work orders, which represents about 24%, about 32,587 of our open work orders. The majority of these are paint and floor tile. And it's been something that's been just, the agency has been dragging along as a real drag on our overall performance. And I think we have a commitment to really look at how we can actually proactively address this issue. Improving our skilled trades and service, and again, that's really about planning and logistics. Establishing quality assurance process and reporting, something that's very important not only for operations but for the overall agency. How do we make sure that the work that we do is of high standard and that we actually have ways to ensure that that standard is being maintained is something we're going to be tackling. and inventory management rollout. Making sure that the materials are available through the stores, et cetera, but as importantly, making sure that as work orders are being performed, that they are being tracked on our work order system, that through our Maximo, we actually know what material was used, and that way we can actually look at having that as a way of reordering in a much more systemic way of dealing with this. So that board and chair concludes their GM's report. Question?
Yes. In the area of the skilled trades work orders, I definitely would like to see or hear about the actual process and procedures that were put in place so that we know more or less what that entails. Also, in the area of apartment turnaround time, especially the part where it's DHS to improve the performance of DHS I'm assuming that you're talking about getting the people with DHS into the apartments and then following up on the progress. Is that what I'm to understand by that statement?
Well, really, I think that is incorporated, but also the idea of getting some city funding to help us pay for this is what that's really about.
I'd like to at least speak with you or the team about that.
On both of those, I will have some follow-up with you.
Thank you.
If I could just say, I think one of the factors that has allowed staff to drive down the turnaround number is the fact that the mayor has provided resources to NYCHA to support the additional overtime that it requires to get in and turn over those apartments. I think the issue around services is what I think I hear you is sort of separate from that.
Right.
Okay.
I just wanted to comment that there's a group called CAMBA. It's a community-based group, and I understand they were in the different developments. I know they were in Coney Island. They certainly were in Red Hook, and I understand hundreds of residents showed up for help with rent assistance. Maybe it could be they don't know how to manage paying their rent. Maybe they need help to get the rent paid. But this group, CAMBA, was definitely out there, and there was a large response of people who needed help with the rental assistance. The other thing I wanted to mention was the skilled trades. You mentioned something about handheld devices. I think there needs to be some kind of accountability of their time. You know, I see them in the developments. I'm not sure that they're working on anything, but then I see them in the afternoon doing the work I think they could have done during the day so that they get the overtime. So my mind says to me, are they scamming the system? You know, work that you should be doing during your daytime hours, you know, the evening, like the apartments renovation. They stay around and then they come in after 4 o'clock, they get the time and 3/4 or time and a half. So if they had these handheld devices that a lot of businesses have, you can monitor them where they are and the time that they're doing the work. So that's just a thought.
Well, on the Canva and others, we've actually done an inventory of those community-based organizations that can assist with payments and counseling, et cetera. And we're now tying those resources in with the property managers, so they know their availability, particularly per neighborhood. But that's a great recommendation. And you're right on the handhelds. It's something it's really is one of the things that would bring us into the current thinking about excellent property management, to that point that we actually be able to know in real time where folks are, and as importantly, to have the sequencing of the work that's done in a way that doesn't that's more expeditious and more efficient. So the whole area of skilled trade is a major one for us. It's something where we're looking at again benchmarking our current performance, looking at things that are the sign-in time versus the time that work is actually being done. There's some deltas there and some efficiencies that we can look at there. But fundamentally, as I said in the report, it's really about, I think, looking at the planning and the logistics of it. Once we have a handle on that, then I think we have a better opportunity to make sure that people are doing the right thing.
And I'd just like to make a comment on the skilled trades, because when I spoke to the manager in my development, they say that they don't have supervisor over the skilled trade. So that's a problem within itself. And that's the reason I think that a lot of times they can do the work when they get ready to do it, which is usually round 4 and after. So if the authority can do something in that particular capacity, because it's no accountability as far as when they start the work and whatever. So, and if they don't have any supervisor to be there to say this or to address this issue, that's a problem, not only for the authority, but for the people who need the work done.
There was only one other thought that concerned me about the turnaround time for the move-outs, when people move out. How fast do we get those apartments back on the rolls where they can be rented? We have the homeless situation. We need to work on reducing the time, but I understand it depends on the condition of the apartments when people vacate them. I mean, some of them are in great disrepair. I've seen where there were no walls, cabinets have to be taken off, you know. So that takes a longer time. But how can we work to reduce the time for turning around these vacant apartments? That's what concerns me.
Well, I think to your point, one of the things that ongoing proper maintenance in real time means that there's less work that has to be done
That is
at
true.
vacancy. So that's all this is connected. And I talk about the balanced scorecard as an example of that. You know, that there is a relationship between all of these different activities. But you're right. There's some instances where it just needs paint, and then we're in and out of there very quickly. It's averaged against those that have been trashed and require a lot of work. But I think the simplistic answer is really, you know, how do we ensure good state of repair in real time, so at the time of vacancies, there'll be a faster turnaround.
And let's be realistic about that particular issue, because a lot of the developments don't have enough help. So that might be one of the reasons that it takes a little longer to get these apartments back up to where they can be rented out, because you don't have enough workers in a lot of these developments. So that too is a problem, because if we, in order to ensure real time and whatever to get these apartments ready for the next people that are going to be renting them, then you need to have people there to work. And if you got like 2 maintenance workers or whatever, aside from maybe they might have like the painting and all of that, because we know that maintenance don't do that. But there are other things that need to be done in that apartment. And if you don't have enough help, how are you going to do it in real time?
Okay. Thank you, General Manager.
Chair, you may proceed with the regular calendar, item number 1.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Louis Ponce, Senior Vice President of Operations for Support Services. I'll be presenting items 1 and 2. These requirement contracts provide for boiler water testing and treatment for various developments in Manhattan and Brooklyn. This work was traditionally done by our staff. Due to time needed to do preventive maintenance, repair equipment failures, and staff shortages, it is oftentimes not performed consistently. Additionally, this work requires handling caustic chemicals that can cause injuries to staff if not done properly and without the proper PPE. The successful use of boiler and steam main chemical treatment has the potential to save the authority substantial fees and welding costs for repairs and reduce service interruption for residents. For these reasons, we would like to use these contracts to free up staff time to focus on pending heating issues and also ensure proper and consistent chemical treatment to our heating and steam distribution systems, measure savings and injuries, and decide if this should be our practice going forward. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder for both these contracts is the Metro Group Incorporated. This firm should analyze the water quality of each boiler at least once a week, perform the needed chemical treatment, and submit weekly water reports to the heating department. These are 2-year requirement contracts with a 1-year renewal option. Item number 1 is for Brooklyn developments. It's for $1,150,733.36. Item number 2 is for the Manhattan developments. It's for $1,162,569.12. The Metro Group is qualified to perform this scope of work. They have successfully completed over $400,000 worth of services for the authority of the past 5 years. That work was mainly done to do boiler water treatment at the Sandy site. So the temporary boilers that we had over there. I respectfully request that the board authorize these contracts. Questions?
Is this for the temporary boilers only, or the,
These are
Or-
only for the permanently installed boilers.
Oh, the permanent
The previous, the $400,000 work that the company did for us was for the temporary boilers. And we want to expand that to the permanent boilers.
And I remember if I asked you, just to make sure that there's no way that this system will interact with the drinking water, and so we're safe there.
Absolutely not. No, it's a separate, totally separate from domestic drinking water.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, distinguished board, General Manager, good morning.
Good morning.
Gerald Nelson, VP for Public Safety, and I wish to make a request to withdraw items 3 and items 4 at this time.
and what's the rationale behind
There's-
the withdrawal?
We're going to resubmit on the November board, but there's some bookkeeping that needs to be rectified in order to submit it in a proper way now.
Okay.
The only thing I hope then, because I was getting ready to give you a compliment on the Section 3 hiring, I hope that doesn't change.
Absolutely not, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, board members. I'm Michael
Morning.
Rosen, Acting Executive Vice President for Capital Projects. I'll be presenting items 5, 6, and 7. Item 5 is a request to award a contract to Huntington Power Equipment in the amount of $42,830,531 it's a requirements contract for standby power generators at Sandy damaged buildings. As part of the FEMA approved scope of work, FEMA is funding full backup power generators at all of the damaged buildings. Approximately 220 buildings will receive full backup power. This marks the first time that NYCHA buildings have ever had full permanent backup power at this site. Part of the scoping is again, it's a requirements contract. It's a 5-year agreement, which provides for producing and delivering the generators. We are essentially taking advantage of economies of scale by entering into this contract, so that the estimate for purchasing the generators individually was $116 million. By using these economies of scale, we're doing this. They're getting the same amount of generators for approximately $42 million, or approximately $43 million. The savings are more than $73 million. The way it will work is the contractors, when the work is scheduled, will place the order. NYCHA will approve the order and then make the payment. This contract includes factory testing, field commissioning, a 5-year warranty, installation recommendations and documentation, and certification and training for NYCHA personnel.
Questions?
So it's as needed, if we don't need them, we don't request them, is that it?
Correct. I mean, we're anticipating putting, generators at all of the buildings that were damaged by Sandy, but we will do it as needed and in real time. So when, the contracts and the work will be phased, when it's time for these generators, the generators will be ready for us to purchase at this price.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Item number 6 is a request to award a contract to Arrow Steel in the amount of $1,499,889.04 for interior compactors at various developments in Manhattan and Brooklyn. Arrow Steel was the sole bidder on this contract. The good news is that despite being the sole bidder, they were in line with our estimate. This is less than 4% higher than our estimate. The scope includes 53 interior compactors at 5 developments. That's Campos Plaza 2, East River, Grant, Reed, and Seward Park. All of those have compactors that have exceeded their useful life. Arrow has been in business since 1981. They've performed 28 projects at NYCHA as the prime contractor, valued at $7.1 million. Their overall performance is satisfactory. The VNC was issued on June 10th, 2015, and found no issues. The OIG has extended the approval period of the VNC through 10/30/15. And I just want to mention that we had, before this, redesigned our specs and provided for 7 different brands and manufacturers that could be used in an effort to bring in more bidders to this. It did not result in that. Again, Arrow Steel was the sole bidder.
You said that the OIG is extended to October 30th. What happens after that? Do we have to do a reissue a new one? Or?
Right, well, I believe if this is ratified today, we're okay to move forward.
Fine. Thank you. Other questions?
No.
Okay.
Item number 7 is an authorization to approve a change order to AAH Construction Corp. in the amount of $59,925.50. This contract is for basketball court improvements at Unity Plaza, sites 4, 5A, 6, 7, 9, 11, 12, and 27. Basketball court and amphitheater improvements. The items in this change order include bleachers and changing the spec of the basketball backboards. The bleachers were originally included in this contract. They were removed at some point to perform additional work that was required. The agreement to remove those bleachers took place between Capital Project, the Tenant Association, and Property Management. However, this project is in part funded by city capital dollars. The council member who provided $500,000 towards this project did not agree to remove the bleachers from the scope of this work. At the council member's request, we are putting the bleachers back in the scope of work and request that this change order be approved.
I just have, it's more of a statement rather than a question, or it might pop up. But looking at the scope of the work that you're talking about, amphitheater, bleachers, and the basketball court, and then the amount of developments that, or buildings or sites that it's going to affect, I mean, I'm glad you guys did a tremendous job and are going to do it for that little bit of amount that we're showing. But it's being someone that doesn't know construction and construction costs, I'm amazed at how well you did doing all of that scope of work in that development and only charging the $58,000.
No,
So
so,
the change order.
yeah, the change order is for
For additional
$58,000.
stuff.
The contract itself,
No.
the contract itself is $874,000.
That's correct. That is correct, 874. But the changeover, you're talking about the amphitheater, right?
It's literal, this change order is literally just for the bleachers to be put back in and for the backboard specification to be changed.
Fine. Thank you.
Who's the council person who's putting in the money?
Councilmember Barron.
Okay.
Thank you.
Questions? Great.
Thank you. Madam Chair, 7 items were presented for board approval, with items number 3 and 4 being withdrawn. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Go ahead.
I motion.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. See you next month. Happy trick or treating. Yep.
You know what my casting is?